welcome. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm curious how many people were here for the show we did yesterday? You guys are gluttons for punishment. I can't believe that. We're doing it again tomorrow, so you can just stay in your seats overnight. That way you'll be sure to have a seat for tomorrow. So, thanks very much. What I said yesterday is we're going to try to make it a little bit different, but cover the basics each day for people who are new. But because we're doing it 3 days in a row, because we know a lot of people come in each time. In fact, I think, didn't you have that exact seat yesterday? I think you're wearing the same shirt, actually. Anyway. We're trying to mix it up a little bit, maybe talk about some stuff that's different so you'll recognize some of it from yesterday and then some new, and then we'll probably try to do the same thing tomorrow, bring out a little bit new. So there was 3 of us, me, Harlan, and Kirk. Yesterday we're asking Brian. Brian, here's your hand. Brian Stoker is from the interior. So we didn't talk much about the interior yesterday, so we'll concentrate on that a little bit more today, and Brian will do that. So. I know everybody likes the videos. Did you guys like the videos we showed yesterday? Yeah. Okay, so we'll start with that same video.
That was fun.
So, don't tell anybody who saw this.
Yes, I noticed you did. Thank you.
The difference is only in the beat.
Pretty is as pretty does. She's got to go where she works. I wouldn't have a car that didn't have the fastest engines and everything. I've got answers in here now. I shouldn't talk to you about it because you're not supposed to be doing this.
Things that are exciting, and of course the whole idea of racing is exciting in itself. To be out here and enjoy the thrill of the race is important.
We're so close to bringing this dream of an all-new mid-engine Corvette to reality.
Spotlights down a little bit, it'd make it a little easier to see the screen, it'd be a little brighter. But we like looking at that historical footage because the car that we have here today wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the efforts of those who preceded us. And so we stand on the shoulders of giants. You heard some of them in that video. Zora, of course, Bill Mitchell. The third voice you heard there was Lloyd Royce, who was talking about racing and being an exciting thing to be involved with. You may not recognize that name. Lloyd was president of the company, and his son, Mark, is now president of the company. So the passion runs really deep, and actually Mark is flying down later this afternoon to be with us at the Hall of Fame dinner tonight. So he's been a huge supporter all the way through of us doing what we think is the right thing to do for Corvette, which leads us into the next video, which I also showed yesterday with a bunch of us on the team talking about the challenge that we had in doing a mid-engine Corvette.
Felt like we were reaching the limit of our performance capability in the architectures that we had. We decided to move away from our comfort zone.
We left no stone unturned. We were constantly asking ourselves, could we make something newer, better, more unique, and maintain Corvette?
It's part art, so hand sculpted clay, and part digital math-based design.
Purposeful surface development in terms of the three elements that play a part of that. Drag, of course, cooling, and then downforce, keeping the vehicle stable.
When we finally got to the track, we burst out laughing. Oh my God, that's what we wanted.
World-class lubrication system.
More tactile feedback, so more direct steering.
The rear weight bias for better acceleration, performance, and track times.
A dual-clutch transmission, which is quicker than a human being could ship a manual transmission.
The history, people, mystique of the car was simply taking the time to cross the finish line.
And this is really highlighting that craft. Wow, this is going to be the car for a new generation. A very compelling three-dimensional machine.
A game changer.
People will look at it, and they just will not believe what they're seeing. When you get into a Corvette, you're a superhero.
That's you guys. You guys are the superheroes, and thank you so much for being here. We wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for your support, buying the cars, being part of the, enjoying it, making it part of your lifestyle. So thank you very much. It's really weird watching ourselves on the big screen here. I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty awkward watching ourselves back. Anyway, that was that video was a compilation of. It was not scripted. They just sat all of us on the team down and talked to us about the car, and I think it took 8 or 10 hours, and so we got 2 minutes of good material. So that's what you saw. And actually, we used a lot of that material. If you go on website, you'll see that there's this Corvette Academy. I think there's like 25 videos, all talking about little bits of the car. It's nice that you hear the people who actually did the car, worked on the car, describing features, describing how it works. So while you're waiting to get your new C8, you can kind of go through, and by the time you get it, you're going to understand a lot about how everything works. So I want to thank everybody for coming here, 25th anniversary. It's amazing how this worked out. This wasn't planned, that we'd have a brand new car, mid-engine car, and it would coincide almost exactly with the 25th anniversary of the museum, but worked out pretty good. So we're happy to be here. We got lots of people from Michigan. This is some of the faces you'll see out front who've worked on the car. We've been diligently working on this thing for years and haven't been able to say anything, share anything, but now here we are, we're able to do that. So that's the team from Michigan, and another very large contingent here, local in Bowling Green. You'll see a lot of these faces around. Feel free to approach them, ask them about the car, get your questions answered, and this is part of the job we really love, talking face-to-face with customers. So it's really cool that we're able to bring out this car, and even though we love our history, we respect our history, we're always trying to move the ball forward, always trying to, I know Dave Hill's here somewhere, one of the things he used to say, we always try to exceed our previous best. So we did a great job on the C7, we're trying to do an even better job on C8, take all the learnings from all the history, all of our customer interactions, and how can we consolidate that into a car that's the best one that's ever been done. So this slide was kind of the scheme behind, okay, why go mid-engine? There's a lot of physics reasons why it makes sense to get more weight on the back. I'll talk about that a little bit. But the whole, Corvette's all about the driving experience. Two people in a car, and that kind of visceral, unique driving experience that you don't get from any other product. And so, in the sense where the engine is just one part of that equation. How do you get that driving experience? And so we really wanted from the beginning to optimize everything about that. So putting the engine in the back, you could do a pretty bad car. Just because you put the engine in the back doesn't make it a great car. You have to really take advantage of that and leverage it as much as possible. So we knew it would give the car a new proportion, so that's a design thing, but that's not why we did it. But we really wanted to have that kind of electrifying driving experience. And that's a big part of it, in addition to getting the power to the ground. But the equation we've been trying to solve really for the last 15 years is how do you do that, get all of that performance stuff without compromising the rest of the car. So the things that you've become used to, a decent amount of luggage space, very comfortable to drive in for long distances, very reliable, easy to maintain. Part of the value proposition is not just the initial price of the car, but how much does it cost to stay in the car, to maintain the car. And so those are all things that Corvette is known for. We had to make sure that just because we put the engine in the back, we didn't sacrifice. And so really it's been close to 15 years we've been thinking about how do we architect a car that does all that. This slide was actually put together by Harlan almost 15 years ago. It was actually during Dave Hill's leadership on the team. And so this was the big picture. The question is how to do it. That's what took a long time. It's so old that Sammy Sosa is our poster child for Grand Slam home runs. He retired quite a long time ago. And Harlan's a good friend of his. He says he's not looking as good as he did then these days. Okay, so a couple of fundamentals, and I talked about this yesterday, but for people who didn't see it. So when you move the engine to the back, you move the center of gravity, you move the whole occupant compartment forward, in this case about 16.5 inches, so the whole windshield moves way forward. We've got some dimensions on here, so if you look at where your feet are relative to the front tires, you sit way behind the front wheels on today's car, and actually quite a bit rearward of the center of gravity of the vehicle, which is about midway between the wheels. When you get to a mid-engine car, you're sitting way far forward, your feet are almost touching what we call the tire flap, so that's the envelope that the tires live in. So you can see you're only about a foot from the front axle. And because you're sitting almost on top of the center of gravity and actually slightly forward of it, the whole car rotates around you. And so it gives you a very different driving experience. I call it riding the front axle, so when you turn in, you move in as opposed to sitting in the back and the front end of the car is right in front of you and it's turning in. Even though the front end cars are super responsive and get great marks for handling, it's a very different experience when you're sitting closer to the front axle than the rear. And then front visibility, we wanted to make sure that the view of the road was something that you could appreciate. You could place the car very precisely on the street or on the track, and that panoramic view was something we really strive for to get better when we move the engine to the back. And even though it doesn't look like it's a big angle change, we do a pretty good job on today's car. 3.5 is called down vision, the angle that you can see the road and how close you can see the road in front of your feet. Going from 3.5 to almost 5 degrees down vision is a milestone. And there's cars we're letting people sit in out there. It's hard to appreciate when the car is sitting still, but when you get out on the road, that's when you realize, okay, this is a much different view than I'm used to. And once you get used to it, you never want to go back. You really love that sort of go-kart feel of being able to see everything around the front of the car. So this is the way a media person described it. This is not the way we described it, and certainly no disrespect for the current car. But the way they described it is when you're sitting way behind the engine, it's more like a locomotive with the engineer's cab way back here, versus the jet fighter sitting way in the front. So it's not that big a difference, but it is kind of in that direction. So other things we wanted to do is, you know, today's car, there's some people who don't fit very well. We actually wanted to have more people be able to fit in the car. And so from the beginning, we said, even though the engine's behind you, which would be easy to say, okay, it's going to be cramped, you're going to have a bulkhead behind the seats that are going to prevent you from going back. From the beginning, we said we need an inch more seat travel. And even though that doesn't sound like a lot, it's quite a lot. On the C7, I sit with the seat full rearward. On the C8, when I put the seat full rearward, I can barely touch the pedals. They're far enough away. And then we added recline angle. So today's car reclines 9 degrees from the standard position. We almost doubled that to 17 degrees, so people who like to lean back in the seat, either as a driving position or resting comfortably on the passenger side, we actually added that recline angle so you can really be comfortable on long trips. So that's part of solving the equation. How do you do a mid-engine car, get all the performance benefits, but keep sort of that long-distance GT experience that I know many of you enjoyed coming here for this weekend. Kind of as a byproduct, we didn't really appreciate it at first, but it turned out to be a huge deal. I don't know if Kirk's going to show his chart that shows the aerodynamic pressures on the car, but a big chunk of the impact of the air on the car is across the windshield. The air accelerates over the hood, and when it encounters this brake, this steepening of the angle where you get to the windshield, that actually slows the air down and creates a bubble of high pressure at the base of the windshield. And when that's closer to the front axle, that helps you for downforce. So you can see on the new architecture, this bubble of pressure is sitting almost right over the front tire versus well behind the front tire previously. And getting front downforce on a street car is a huge challenge. You can tell on our Z06s and Z01s where we had these really extreme splitters. That's all to get the high pressure air at the front of the car pushing down on that splitter. That's an extreme measure we have to take to get front downforce. When you put the windshield here, you don't need such big aerodynamic aids. So on our Z51 package, which actually has true full vehicle downforce, you see there's just a little tiny splitter on there. So that really helps you for contacting curbs and things. So that's a way that the architecture itself makes a fundamental change into the way we can do our engineering. So the other part of it, does anybody here drink beer? Okay, a couple people. So the luggage, you know, it was funny because when we did the reveal, I wanted to talk about luggage room, and the communications people are like, you nuts? Why would you talk about luggage room in a reveal of a high-performance sports car? But we come to these events and we watch what you do with your cars, and we've kind of spoiled you since the 5th generation. Even though people don't say luggage room is a reason for purchase of a performance car like this, it's nice, isn't it, to have that kind of, and it lets you incorporate the car into your lifestyle. You can go on long trips. You don't have to bring an SUV. You can look good, you can have fun drive, and you can bring everything you want in your car. And so we wanted to be able to keep doing that. And we had the issue of, you know, it would have been easy just to do a fixed roof car. We just wanted to keep the removable roof panel, even on the coupes, and so we had to have a place to put it. And so it had to fit in the back. That's why you have a trunk in the back and a trunk in the front. It made our job a lot harder, but that's the kind of thing, that's part of the formula. We had to figure out how to do that. And actually, if you fill the front and the back with water, it's about the same. It's almost exactly the same volume. The shapes are very different, and that was a compromise we had to make. But if you look at the total volume, so if you're packing with soft luggage and so forth, in fact, even the luggage that we sell as an accessory that completely fills the back of a 7th generation car also fits perfectly in this car. So part of the way we did that is we put the heat exchangers off to the sides in the front, and if you look at the rolling chassis out front, you'll see that they're surprisingly big for a car with a really low, pointy nose. If you look at the size of those radiators, the two of them together are quite a bit bigger than the one central radiator that we have today. And that preserves room in the center for the front. 5 cases of beer, and the reason why we show beer here is because those heat exchangers are outboard, all the hot air goes hot, so this is cool, so that's why the beer's here and the pizza's in the back.
That's a
So,
great line.
a little warmer in the back. It's about like we've experienced in the last few generations of cars. It'll heat up over time on a long trip. It doesn't have the kind of sun loads that today's car does, but it does have the exhaust and the muffler running underneath. We have tons and tons of multiple shielding for thermal management to make sure it doesn't get too hot. So it does get warm back there, but no worse than what you're used to.
Are there drains for the melted ice?
There are drains, actually. Anyway, use an ice pack, though. We prefer if you use an ice pack, a solid ice pack. Anyway. This is a very informal thing. If you guys have any random thoughts you'd like to shout out, that would be fine. So in the back, we want to make sure, and you know, we say 2 sets of golf clubs, that'd be 2 day bags, but we actually did go out and get a pro bag, like a real professional golfer's bag. I don't have the picture in here. You can put one of the giant Caddyshack type bags here in the back, and of course the front, the top goes back here, and you can put one of our development engineers likes to ride mountain bikes. He's got a 29er, if you know what that means, so 29-inch diameter wheels. That's the biggest wheels you can get on a bicycle. That fits in the back, and then he puts the bike on the bike rack. So you'll find that this car has a lot of utility, certainly superior to any other vintage vehicle. There's the roof in the back. So I mentioned we have both exterior and interior design here, so it's awesome to be both Kirk and Brian here. So Kirk's going to go through some of the stuff that he went through yesterday, talk a little bit more about exterior design, then we'll get Brian up here to talk interior.